Bobby, we talked to a bunch of the other quarterbacks, and I've asked them all the same question. There are guys who can go out and run around and throw the ball, then they're quarterbacks. What's the difference between a guy, do you think, the difference between those type guys and what makes a quarterback?
I think probably, the way he handles himself, around the other players, especially in the huddle. You've got to exude a confidence. Not that you're cocky or anything like that, but those guys have got to believe in you. And I can remember playing South Carolina. I think it was, I won't say it's our senior year, and I'm sitting on the sideline. Jimmy Poston, their defensive tackle, had hit me in the sternum and bruised my sternum, and I'm sitting there going, couldn't hardly breathe, couldn't take a deep breath. And we were behind in that ball game. I think it was, I want to say 17-15, some weird score like that. And I'm sitting there, can't breathe on the sideline, and I'm, kind of listening 2 or 3 seats down is Thompson and Priest. And Priest said, don't worry, Scotty will get us down there. Scotty will get us down there. And Joe looked over at me and punched him, said, look over here, and I'm sitting over there and can't breathe. And but those guys had confidence that I could do it. Well, we really played well that game. We ran a draw play, and Steve Wolden ran for about 25 yards right up the middle. George Hunt kicks about a 31-yard field goal, and we win the ball game 18-17. But that kind of confidence is I think what separates quarterbacks from those that want to play quarterback.
You came in, there were about 8 to 10 guys, I think, that were recruited, and they were all quarterbacks.
Yes, Tim Priest, Joe Thompson, Jim Maxwell, myself, probably about 3 or 4 others. And Jim Maxwell and I stayed at quarterback, and Joe went to wide receiver, Tim went to defensive backs. Both of them played really, really well in those positions. But I think back then especially, they would recruit a number of quarterbacks knowing that high school coaches usually take their best athlete and make him a quarterback.
Tim came here saying, from Huntington, and he said, I'm going to be the Tennessee quarterback until he saw you throw. And that was one of your strong points, your good, strong throwing arm, wasn't it?
Well, I was blessed with one, and heck, how I learned to throw? Sunday afternoon, I'd watch on old black and white TV. I'd watch the Colts and Johnny Unitas. I'd watch the Green Bay Packers and Bart Starr, and I watched how they would throw. And then we'd go out in the yard after the game's over, and we'd watching TV, and I'd just try to emulate them. And then Coach Jimmy Dunn came down recruiting me.
Out of Georgia.
Right. And he was, the offense coordinator here and quarterback coach. And he came down and he said, there's one thing with your delivery. He said, you got a strong arm and everything. He said, but after you follow through, you want to turn, your palm wants to be the outside. And what that did was put the point of the ball up a little bit. So when that ball was coming to you, the point was up, and it was an easy ball to catch. I went out against a brick wall, and I threw that way all summer long, between my junior and senior year in high school, and learned to do it. He said, if you throw the ball right, it'll hit that wall and bounce down into the left. And I got to where every time I threw the ball, it would bounce down into the left, and I felt like, that I was, where he wanted me to be.
When you got here, you played behind Bubba White. What did you learn from Bubba?
Bubba was a great quarterback also, and he was an old Georgia boy from down around Marietta and Atlanta, and he was very solid, and probably his quickest attribute was he had real quick feet, and that was something that I had to work on. And Coach Jim Wright, between our junior and senior year, when he came as offensive coordinator, he told me, he said, you got to get your feet quicker. And so we went to, started working out. And back when it was, it might have been illegal, but I'm not sure. But in the summertime, he'd take me and Joe Thompson and Jim Maxwell and Dennis Chadwick, and we'd go over there in Stokely Athletic Center, an old press room down there, and he'd put a towel up over the window, and he'd turn the heat up about 85 in there, and we'd stay in there for about 2 hours working out, and
Just working on
the whole
footwork.
thing was working on footwork and getting quicker feet.
You got a chance to start in '69. This is a very good football team you had around you, wasn't it?
It was really good, and we had solid offense, but I think you have to say that the defense, we lived by the defense then, because, heck, I knew if I threw an interception or we fumbled the ball and gave them, I knew the defense was going to come in and shut people down. So we had a lot of confidence in them, and I think they had enough confidence in us that if we needed to score, by golly, we could. And but when you have guys like Jackie Walker and Steve Kiner, Jack Reynolds,
Bobby Majors.
Bobby Majors played in that defensive backfield. Tim Priest, of course. We lived, on our defense. People couldn't score on us very easily. And if they can't score on you, they can't beat you.
Offensively, though, you had a great running back, Kurt Watson. And I think when you talk about the great running backs at Tennessee, I think he's undervalued a little bit. He was a really terrific
without
back.
Without a doubt. He, I called him Chuddis. And this got to be a nickname. I called him Big Chuddis. But he had great balance. He had good size. He was about 225, 230, and but he just couldn't. You couldn't knock him off his feet. And we ran the veer offense, which you read the first guy outside the tackle. You use him as a dive back, and if that guy doesn't commit and come down, you just give him the ball, because he's not going to arm tackle him. And that's what we did. If he came down and took Kurt out, then I'd pull it out and then option the next man. Curtis, I just can't say enough about him. He was he made our offense go.
But he was a tough player.
Oh yeah, hard nose, and like I said, you couldn't knock him off his feet. I mean, he had some of the best balance that I've ever seen.
And your tailback was Don McCleary,
Yes.
who was a very solid football player as well.
Very, very well, from Jackson, Tennessee, and I think he's a state representative now.
After a long coaching career. Yeah.
Long coaching career. I mean, and a great guy, golly bum. He's just, real soft-spoken and everything, but boy, you get him on the football field, and he knew what to do.
The '69 team won the SEC championship, and then you go to the Gator Bowl to play Florida.
Right.
And some rumors started the week of the Gator Bowl about Coach Dickey.
Right. They started surfacing that that he was negotiating with Florida and probably going back to Florida and everything. And we had a team meeting, and he came in and told us just not to worry about it, that wasn't true and all this. So we didn't. We ended up getting beat 14-13 in that ball game by Florida, and we were a little frustrated about it. We felt like, man for man, we probably had a better football team. But, that it didn't work out. We got beat 14-13. And then, a week or two later, Coach Dickey has decided to go to Florida. So, they were coming to Knoxville the next year, in 70, which is, my senior year, Tim, and quite a few of our teammates that were seniors that year, and we weren't going to let him come back in our backyard and beat us. I mean, we had probably as good a week of practice that we've ever I could ever remember here. There was a lot of things going on. They were going to throw oranges at him, when he came into Neyland Stadium and everything, and Coach Woodruff made a plea that, treat him with respect and all this stuff. And there was a lot going on. And they came in here, And I can remember, we used to come out from the 50-yard line on the east side, and that's where their bench was. And I can remember the fans, really being into the game, getting started. And when we ran through that tee, those guys were standing there on the sidelines with their jaw down. I mean, it was off on their chest. And we just went out there, took the ball game away, fairly quickly. Beat them, I think, 38-7, and it was a happy day in Knoxville that day.
That was the 69. 67, that era with the two SEC championships, the 67 team wins the national championship. That was a really good era of Tennessee football.
Oh, it was unbelievable, and it's coming in as a freshman, that year. I mean, we didn't get a ring or anything like that. We did in '69. That I've worn for about 40 years now. I hate to say that, but that's the truth. But anyway, it's.
How much was Coach Dickey responsible for the mentality and the approach of Tennessee football at that time?
It was his program. I mean, he ran the show and recruiting wise and everything. So, starting in he started in '64, and I came in '67. So, he had 3 years of recruiting and everything. And I was in his fourth class. So, he did a heck of a job recruiting,
Were you stunned when he left?
Yeah, I think everybody was. And I'll say this, and I believe it till the day I die. If he had stayed here, he could have had the same kind of dynasty that Bear Bryant had at Alabama. I really think he had things going that well. That's what I believe.
But he goes home, and then Coach Battle comes in, and then, of course, everybody knows from there. But let's talk a little bit about 1970. You guys are coming off the SEC championship, and that year you made it to the Sugar Bowl against Air Force. Talk about that 1970 football team.
Well, once again, we had great defensive teams. We had a defensive coach come in, Coach Bennett, and coach the defensive backs, and he made those guys invincible. I mean, they intercepted 32 passes. How many times does that happen? And it's all because they were in shape. Tim Priest told me, he said, Scotty, I never got tired. He said, I could play 2 games back to back, and it's because of the way he worked them. And, he had a little circle, you did 100 push-ups and you did 100 sit-ups before every practice. And he would walk around, and you could kind of dog it if you wanted to, and when he had his back to you, but if he turned around and saw you, and he counted them, he'd 1, 2, he'd get up 78, 79, and if you were dogging it, 1, he'd start right back at 1. So, you didn't dog it because you didn't want to be the one that made your teammates have to go back and do those things over. But that year was a special year, because, like I said, we had 2 new head coaches. We had a defensive back coach, and then Jim Wright, our offensive coordinator, came in and worked, like I said, our summers. We worked our fanny off over there, and so it was. That team had some special people on it.
The 70 team goes to the Sugar Bowl, and you play Air Force in the Sugar Bowl. But there was some tense moments before that game leading up to it.
Back then they had the banquet, and everything beforehand, and they had. I can't remember their coach's name, but anyway, he got up to introduce their team, and he decided he was a comedian or entertainer, and he was being kind of cocky and introducing these players and everything like that, and they kind of acted like they were embarrassed to have to play us. and it kind of stuck in our craw a little bit. And this is like 2 days before the game, and so we kind of rededicated ourselves a little bit. I remember Coach Wright came to me and he said, Bobby, he said, I want you to write out what you feel like our game plan is. He said, and then I want you to commit it to memory. Your question in the team meeting before the game, and it always had about 10 questions that Coach Battle would ask individual players, like what's your technique on this? What are you supposed to get done? And he said, your question is going to be, what is our game plan? And I, kind of slammed shut there. I said, golly, mama, he's never done that before. I usually just had to answer one or two questions. So when we got in the team meeting the night before the game, my question was, what was the game plan? So I stood up and and went over everything that we were going to try to do and why we were going to try to do it and everything. It seemed like, I was up there for an hour, probably wasn't more than 5 minutes. But anyway, we got it done, and they had guys coming up to me. I had guys coming up to me and said, boy, that was good, And but anyway, that was how intense we were.
Yeah, because you really felt at Air Force at that banquet before the game disrespected.
Had slighted us.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we went out and we had them 24-0 first quarter, and it was by design. I mean, it was going to happen that way.
And everybody contributed. Bobby Majors had
he had
play.
a punt return. That's still the best move I've ever seen. Just about anybody make is, there's a guy got him pinned on the sidelines, and they're not more than 3 yards from the sidelines, and the guy never puts a hand on him. I mean, he gave him that old limp leg and cut back inside him and was gone. And I can remember Ray Nettles hitting him in the end zone. He runs into the end zone, turns around. If you remember, they had the hedges in the Sugar Bowl down there, and Ray Nettles knocks him into the hedges. He said, "That's the hardest I've ever been hit."
Only guy can catch him, probably.
That's right. That's right.
You were named the most valuable player in that Sugar Bowl, so that has to be very special to you.
It is, and then going back down there and playing for the Saints for 12 years. But it was, it was. I'm just proud that I was able to end my career that way here at the University of Tennessee. Anybody, there's probably 2 or 3 other guys that could have won it on our team just as easily. And I've got the trophy at my house, but there was about 60 or 70 guys that deserved a big part of it.
You were 22-3 as a starter. That's pretty remarkable. And you never lost to Alabama.
Never lost to Alabama. We beat them. Now, I couldn't play my freshman year, but we beat them in '67, and then beat them in '68, '69, and '70. And somebody asked me what some of the most proud moments I've had. I said, shaking Bear Bryant's hand after the game and saying, "Good game."
And those were pretty good Alabama teams that you beat.
Oh, great teams. I mean, they, Scott Hunter and Johnny Musso, and I mean, there was a lot of guys there that played in the big. So,
Bobby, being a quarterback at Tennessee is a special and elite club, and especially the ones that have won SEC championships. That's a very special and exclusive club because there aren't many guys that can wear rings like you got.
Well, it is, and the thing about it is, though, you gotta. It wasn't one guy. It's never one guy. You've got guys up there beating their brains out, trying to protect you. You've got guys picking up blitzing linebackers, stepping up and, taking a shot and delivering a shot. It's never one person. I was fortunate enough to play with a bunch of great guys.
And back then, I think in that late 60s, 69, 70, there was a toughness about those football teams, wasn't there? I mean, it was set by the defense, as you said,
Oh, yeah.
but the whole team had a very good toughness about it.
We had Ray Nettles blew his knee out in spring practice and started the first game the next year. Now that wasn't that wasn't what do you call it? Arthroscopic.
Yeah.
It wasn't orthoscopic surgery.
Back in those days, a knee injury
They
could be
cut
career
you.
ending.
They cut you open. I mean, and he started the first game the next year in 1970. I mean, that's toughness.
And he wasn't the only guy on that team that was tough.
Oh gosh, no. I mean, you got Jackie Walker, who, I mean, he could hit his. I mean, he weighed probably 215, 220 at the most, and I mean, he would flat knock your fanny off. I mean, he was a picture perfect tackler. He tackled the way you're supposed to tackle. And then you had Jamie Rotella, another linebacker. That's three linebackers that, they're as good as Kiner and Reynolds were.
They talk about nowadays speed is the big thing on the football teams, especially defensive football teams. But those teams had great speed on defense.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, probably the slowest guy on the team was Bobby Majors. I mean, he probably ran a 4.75. He probably ran about like me. But he had a knack for just, knowing where that soft spot was. And he would start across the field and he would change directions. And, I mean, you couldn't put a hand on him. I mean, he was a great player. And there were a lot of guys that, they might not have had the big names and everything like that, but they loved to play and loved to win. And they didn't mind paying the price to win.
Bobby, you've got a special relationship with Peyton Manning. Not only the fact you're both Tennessee quarterbacks and you both won SEC championships, but you knew Peyton since he was in the crib, I guess.
Oh yes. I remember when Peyton's brother was born. Cooper. Archie called me in the summer and he said, Scotty, he said, solved our line problems. I said, what are you talking about? He said, Olivia just had a little boy, 12 pounds, 3 ounces. I said, oh, okay, I get you now. And then Peyton was born, and Peyton, I think, was just, I want to say he was 12 even or something like that, but he was just about as big as Cooper was.
Did you play a role in Peyton's recruitment here to Tennessee?
Couldn't. Coach Fulmer, told me, he said, I know you and Archie still talk and everything. He said, but the worst thing that could happen is for us not to be able to recruit Peyton because of something that you did, whether it be just, whatever. And I said, don't worry. So I'd called Archie one day, and Peyton answered the phone, just happened to answer the phone. And he said, hey, Scotty, how you doing? I said, I'm doing fine, Peyton. Listen, tell your dad I called. You know how I feel and everything, and we'll talk to you later. Hung the phone up. I mean, because I wasn't going to let that happen to me. Me be the reason that they couldn't recruit Peyton. I mean, that wasn't going to happen.
But you were very happy when he came in.
Oh yes, and I knew, I told people probably 2 or 3 months before, he declared, where he was going and everything, that I thought he was going to come to Tennessee, and the reason I did was because of David Cutcliffe. I think he wanted to be coached by the best in the SEC at that time, and Coach Cutcliffe by far was probably the best quarterback coach at that time, and maybe even now if he was back as a position coach. But he learned a lot from Coach Cutcliffe, and I know Coach Cutcliffe was glad to have him.
Bobby, you were still very close to the program. You come to practice, you come to all the games, you work on the radio, you do a bunch of different things. And you still have, you can tell, you have a burning pride for wearing that orange shirt.
Probably so. It's a pride thing with me. I'm one of those guys that's still, a team player. I hate to see guys jump up and down and beat their chest. I like it when their teammates come over and pat them on the back, say, "Hey, you did a good job, man," rather than drawing attention to yourself. And that's just, that's just me. I know times change, and ain't nothing I can do about it. But I'm still proud of the way we came through the University of Tennessee. The guys that myself, as well as the guys that I played with, because I think they really knew how to do it.
And the thing is, you still have a great relationship with Joe Thompson and Tim Priest and all the guys you played with.
Yes, we get together, at the Letterman golf tournament and everything we play in every year, and me and Tim and Joe, and usually we'll get one of our sons to play with us, either Adam or Joseph or my son Benson. So, and that makes our fourth. So, but we're still pretty close knit. Just about with everybody. When we have a reunion here and everything, it's always great to get back and listen to some old lies being told and everything. So,
you mentioned your son. He was a member of the '98 national championship team. He's got a couple of SEC championship rings. You got to be very proud when Benson decided to come here.
I am, and I told him one time. I said, at some point I'm going to give you this. Well, after he finished his career, he said, "Dad," he said, "I've got 2 SEC championships and a national championship ring."
Why don't you just keep yours?
He said, "You can just keep yours for a little while." I said, "Okay." I said, "I'll do that." I said, "This will probably go to your son now."
Yeah.
So,
'98, when they won the national championship, I can't imagine a dad being more proud of their son to watch him run off that field.
I was, and the way that he and Jeff Hall were close, friends. Both of them were, strong Christian kids that put their faith first, and they did a heck of a job. That year, shoot, they had to win a couple of games by field goals, 3, I think, and so they had a big part in that, and that's a source of pride for me too.
Benson could have gone a lot of places to play quarterback. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was a very good high school quarterback and had your strong arm. He could throw it around a little bit. But he decided he wanted to come here to Tennessee to first see if he could play quarterback, and then he wound up being the holder.
Right.
But having him come here, I mean, as a dad, how'd you try and address the situation?
Yeah, I was really pleased that he decided to do that. He was Benson was a pretty smart kid too. So, he was a member of the Tennessee Scholars Program and everything here, and he was just really a source of pride in that. Not only did he want to go to the University of Tennessee, but he wanted to be a good person, and he is that. I couldn't be more proud of him, in any situation. I mean, I'm glad he came to the University of Tennessee, but if he had gone somewhere else, I'd have probably missed some Tennessee games during that 4 years.
Bobby, finally, just sum up a little bit what it's meant to you to be here at Tennessee. And you've stayed here after your playing career was over. In fact, you played with the Saints, and you still moved back here because this is home.
I consider myself lucky to have, been able to play here, on a football scholarship and do something that you love, get an education doing it. Won a lot of football games, and that's what it's all about. People can say whatever they want to. One of the things that burns me up in Little League now is, it's just participating. It's not participating, it's winning. And that's what makes it special. And when you've got a bunch of guys that are dedicated to the same goal, and that goal is winning, and you go out and you work and you practice and you get ready to play ball games and you win, that's what it's all about.
Bobby, thanks for your time.
You bet.